Great to have you back. Let's talk about two central themes in this economy and our society right now. We are developing I think, a pretty clear understanding in this country that there are two conflicts that are emerging into the public discussion. The conflicts have been with us for a while, but they're emerging into the public discussion. Even the national swampland media is getting the, what would we call it, the swamp stream media. The conflict between those who are producing and those who are not, the conflict between those who are paying taxes and those who are using taxes, those who are demanding more services and those who are paying for those services, and a conflict between those who want the size, the scope, and the scale of the federal government to be constrained, to be limited, and those who want the federal government to be insinuated into every corner of our society, into every element of our lives. Those are the essential conflicts that are emerging in our public discussion, in which we are obviously following, and which I'm talking about and have been talking about here. One of the best economic thinkers, I believe, in the country is Professor Adam Lerrick. He is scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, and he and I have been talking about this because he is the first person to have introduced me to the fact that we have an extraordinary dichotomy in our economy between those who are paying taxes and those who are not. Adam, great to have you back with us.
Lou, always a pleasure.
How is it that we've reached this point where our society is bifurcated between producers, non-producers, those paying taxes and those using them?
Well, Lou, it sort of crept up on us. And the way it crept up on us is because every time a free market type president wanted to lower taxes in order to stimulate growth, the only way he could get Congress to agree to that was to lower taxes even more on the people at the lower end of the income spectrum.
Right.
And once you get, but those people didn't pay very much taxes in the first place. So each time you've gotten to the point where you've now got a concept which they call refundable tax credits, where people who don't pay any taxes, you actually send them a check, and you call it a tax credit.
Yep.
And now we've reached the point, as you said, where 50% of Americans do not pay any federal income tax at all, and 60%, an overwhelming majority, receive far more from the federal government than they pay in income taxes.
What the burden of paying those taxes when we have that? Your best analysis, now the tax policy numbers are based on households, 47% of households not paying taxes, right. Receiving more federal money. Yeah. In terms of individuals, as you and I have discussed in the past, what do you think the breakdown is?
Well, I think the breakdown, the Tax Policy Institute is pretty accurate.
Right.
I think the number is a little bit higher. They do households. If you do individuals, it's a little higher. But the numbers for no taxes at all is about 50%. When you then take people that just pay a very tiny amount of tax, less than $500, and less than 5% of their income, the lower of those two, you get up to 60%. And those people receive far more from the government than they pay in taxes. I want to bring another number for you, Lou.
Sure.
Which is, what do you think about an economy where 45% of GDP flows through government agencies?
I think I want to throw up.
Well, that's the U.S. economy today. Today, you have that 25%. Federal government spending is 25% of GDP.
Right.
You add in state and local government spending, you're at 45%. All right, and there is no, and these are historic highs, except for World War II, where of course federal government spending went very high because of the war. But since the war, federal government spending has averaged varied between 18 and 20% about. We have now, in the last 5 years, jumped it up to 25%, which is more than a 25% increase, and there's no foreseeable scenario where it's going to go back down below 25%.
Well, now, I'm one of those guys who still remembers my economics class, and I remember there was, the GDP equaled government spending, investment, and consumption. What happened?
Well, what happened is we've just...
Do I remember that correctly, first of all?
Well, yeah, and you add in exports and you take out imports, and
right.
There you are.
Right.
And that's actually another problem, because if you now take the U.S. economy and think of... I'm going to give you three facts, and you tell me how you feel about them.
All right.
First one we talked about. Majority of Americans receive more from the government than they pay in taxes, income taxes. 2, almost half of government spending at all levels now equals almost half of GDP. And 3, a large portion of our debt, the only way we finance this huge government spending is by selling debt to foreigners.
Right.
So an ever-increasing part of every American's life, every day, is spent working for the Chinese.
Incredible.
Paying interest to the Chinese on our bonds.
We have, I don't even know what to say to that. I had interesting. I was talking with John Stossel. I was on a guest on his show the other day, and he had and John's a well-known, prominent libertarian, as were the other panelists in this discussion. And they would have none of the fact that I was concerned about the fact that we had this extraordinary external trade debt, that I was worried about. I was worried about fiscal deficits, that I was worried about consecutive trade deficits. I couldn't believe how dismissive they were of what are obviously dislocations in in an economy that was once proud, productive, and dominating in the world. Instead, we're now a debtor nation. I mean, help me out here, Professor. I felt so alone.
Well, the problem, Lou, is this, and this goes into sort of it's not the Chinese fault that we're working for them.
Right.
I mean, for years...
No, it's our fault.
It's our fault. And it was Republicans and Democrats. Finally, there was the Bush administration used to say all the time, fiscal deficits don't matter. But they forgot the last part of that sentence. As long as the Chinese will buy your bonds.
Exactly.
Right. And the Chinese now have bought so many bonds, the Koreans, the Chinese, the Indians, the Japanese, that they are worried. And they're worried about the dollar because the whole point of the dollar, we had a huge privilege that the world liked to hold dollars. We were what they call the reserve currency of the world financial system.
Yep.
The problem is...
Professor, I got to interrupt you. For whatever reason, we've now acquired a bunch of static on the line. Can we call you right back here? We'll take a quick commercial break and call you right back. Would that work?
That's fine.
All right. We're going to try to clean up that line because there's so much static rolling over it.